the haunted school, where no one survived the night. Would you enter a school where everyone who spent the night disappeared without a trace? There are places in the world that carry stories so dark that the mere mention of their names sends shivers down your spine. Blackwood School, located on the outskirts of a small town in the American countryside, is one of those places. For decades, this abandoned institution has been the center of one of the most terrifying urban legends in North America. What makes this story particularly disturbing is not just the mystery surrounding it, but the numerous documented reports of people who tried to spend the night there and were never seen again.
For continuing to watch the video, please subscribe to the channel and give it a like. Thank you for watching The Witch's Book, Dark Tales.
The beginning of it all, 1952. The story begins on a cold October night in 1952. Blackwood School was still operating normally at that time, housing about 300 elementary and middle school students. It was known as a respectable institution, with dedicated teachers and an impeccable reputation in the local community. But something changed that fateful night. The school janitor, a man named Thomas Whitmore, was making his final rounds before locking the gates. It was around 11 p.m. when he noticed something strange. Lights flickering on the third floor, specifically in the west wing of the building. Thomas had known every corner of that school for 15 years, and he knew for certain that he had turned off all the lights in that area. Armed only with his flashlight and a set of keys, Thomas climbed the creaking stairs to the third floor. The corridors were plunged into an almost palpable darkness, broken only by the trembling beam of his flashlight. When he reached the room where the lights were coming from, the door was ajar. What he saw in that room was never fully revealed. Thomas managed to call the police, but his last recorded words were, "They're all here, the children, but they're not real children." The call was abruptly cut off. When the police arrived, they found the school empty. Thomas Whitmore had completely disappeared. There were no signs of struggle, no blood, absolutely nothing to indicate what had happened. The only strange thing was that all the desks in room 307 were deeply scratched, as if small hands had tried to cling to them with desperate fingernails. The disappearances begin. After the incident with Thomas, the school was temporarily closed for investigation. However, no conclusive evidence was found. The community was divided. Some believed that Thomas had simply run away for unknown reasons, while others whispered about supernatural forces. The school reopened 6 months later. It was a fatal mistake. Just 2 weeks after reopening, a history teacher named David Morrison decided to work late, grading tests. He was last seen at 9:30 p.m. by a colleague who was leaving. The next morning, David didn't show up for his classes. His desk was intact, his personal belongings still there, but he had disappeared. The pattern began to form. Anyone who stayed at the school after nightfall was in danger. In the following months, 3 more people disappeared: a substitute teacher, a cleaning lady, and a student who had been accidentally locked in after hours. All vanished without leaving any trace. Public pressure became unbearable, and in December 1953, Blackwood School closed its doors permanently. The legend takes shape. With the school abandoned, the legend began to grow. Local residents reported strange lights in the corridors at night, shadows moving through broken windows, and the disturbing sound of children laughing when no one was around. But the true story of Blackwood School was much older and darker than anyone imagined. Local researchers discovered that the land where the school was built had a dark past. In the 19th century, the site had been an orphanage run by a woman named Margaret Blackwood. Yes, the school was named after her. Margaret was known in the region as a strict but respected educator. However, records discovered in the city archives revealed a horrifying truth. Between 1887 and 1889, more than 20 children disappeared from the orphanage under mysterious circumstances. Margaret claimed that the children had either run away or been adopted, but there was never proper documentation. The truth only came to light when Margaret was found dead in her office in 1889. Beside her was a diary where she confessed her crimes. Margaret believed she was purifying the children through obscure rituals, sacrificing them to an entity she called the Shadow Teacher. In her own words, she believed she was saving their souls. The orphanage was demolished, but the land remained empty for decades until the school was built on the same site in 1920. No one at the time made the connection between the events. The Challengers, attempts to spend the night. Over the following decades, Blackwood School became a magnet for thrill-seekers, paranormal investigators, and skeptics who wanted to prove there was nothing supernatural about the place. All of them failed. The case of 1967. The college students. In 1967, 5 college students decided to spend the night at the school as part of a fraternity challenge. They entered at 8 p.m., equipped with flashlights, sleeping bags, and a camera. The plan was simple: survive until dawn and document everything. At 11:47 p.m., one of the students managed to make a desperate call to the police. The recording still exists in police archives. "She's here. Margaret is here. The children. They want us to teach. Please, help." Sounds of screaming and something being dragged can be heard before the call drops. The police arrived in 15 minutes. The school was empty. The 5 students had disappeared. Their flashlights and sleeping bags were found scattered in the 3rd-floor hallway. The camera was destroyed, the film completely exposed and unusable. The only disturbing detail, on the blackboard in room 307, someone had written in chalk, "Class has begun. No one can leave until it's over." The case of 1983, the paranormal investigator. Robert Chen was a respected paranormal investigator who had spent the night in hundreds of supposedly haunted locations. In 1983, he decided it was time to unravel the mystery of Blackwood School. Unlike the others, Robert was prepared. He had professional audio and video recording equipment, electromagnetic field detectors, infrared cameras, and a plan for constant communication with his team outside. Robert entered the school at 7 p.m. In the first few hours, his recording showed exactly what you'd expect from an abandoned building: silence, darkness, and occasional sounds of the old structure creaking. Then, at 10:13 p.m., everything changed. In the recordings, Robert can be heard saying, "Are you guys hearing this? It sounds like a classroom. There's someone teaching on the 3rd floor." He began climbing the stairs, narrating everything he saw. The walls are changing. They're not peeling anymore. They look new, like the school has gone back in time. The video transmission began to fail, showing only static images. The last thing the team outside heard was Robert screaming, "No, I'm not one of them. I'm not a teacher. Please let me go." Robert Chen was never found. His team managed to recover some of the recordings, but most were corrupted. The recovered fragments showed disturbing images: small figures sitting at desks, a woman in a Victorian dress at the front of the room, and shadows moving independently of any light source. The curse. Explained. Theories and investigations. Over the years, various experts have tried to explain the phenomena at Blackwood School. Theories range from scientific to supernatural. Theory 1. Underground tunnels. Some researchers suggest there may be a network of underground tunnels beneath the school, possibly built during the orphanage period. These tunnels could explain the disappearances. People could have fallen into hidden passages and gotten trapped. However, this theory doesn't explain the audio and video recordings, nor the visual phenomena reported. Theory 2. Natural toxic gas. Geologists discovered that the area has pockets of natural gas that, in high concentrations, can cause hallucinations and loss of consciousness. This could explain the strange visions reported by victims. However, tests conducted at the site found no dangerous concentrations of gases, and this theory doesn't explain the complete disappearance of bodies. Theory 3. Infrasonic resonance. Some sound frequencies below the range of human hearing can cause feelings of dread, anxiety, and even visual hallucinations. The old structure of the school could be generating these frequencies through wind and deterioration. But again, this doesn't explain the physical disappearances. Theory 4. Margaret's Curse. The most accepted supernatural theory among believers is that Margaret Blackwood, through her macabre rituals, opened some kind of portal or created an eternal classroom, where she and her victims remain trapped in an infinite cycle. Any adult who enters the school at night is seen as a teacher and is forced to participate in this endless class. This theory gains strength due to a disturbing detail that connects all cases. Everyone who disappeared at the school had some connection to education: teachers, school administrators, or college students studying education. The only exceptions were the janitor Thomas, who took care of a school, and the cleaning lady, who worked in educational environments. It's as if the school specifically chose its victims. The ignored warnings. Despite all the documented disappearances, people continue trying to spend the night at Blackwood School. The internet age brought a new type of challenger: influencers and content creators seeking views and fame. In 2019, a YouTuber known as Dark Explorer announced he would spend the night at the school and do a live broadcast of the event. More than 50,000 people watched as he entered the building at 8 p.m. The broadcast started normally. Dark Explorer explored the hallways, making jokes and trying to debunk the legends. Around 10 p.m., he reached the third floor. That's when his attitude completely changed. "Are you guys seeing this?" he asked the camera, pointing to an empty room. There are people sitting there. Children. They're looking at me." The stream viewers saw nothing but an empty, dark room. Dark Explorer began walking toward room 307. "They want me to come in. They say the teacher's waiting for me." His voice was strangely calm, almost hypnotized. The stream cut out at 10:34 p.m. Dark Explorer was reported missing. The police found his camera in the third-floor hallway, still recording. The last image before the battery died showed the door to room 307 open, with a faint light coming from inside. Within that light, shadows were moving. He was never found. Room 307. The heart of darkness. If there's an epicenter for paranormal activity at Blackwood School, it's room 307. Almost all documented disappearances are linked to this specific room. But why? Historical investigations revealed that this room occupied the exact space where Margaret Blackwood kept her personal office in the old orphanage. It was there that she wrote in her diary, planned her rituals, and supposedly conducted the purification ceremonies that took the lives of so many innocent children. When the school was built in 1920, the architect, who was unaware of the site's dark history, designed room 307 as a standard classroom. But from the beginning, teachers reported feelings of discomfort when teaching in that room. Some described an oppressive presence, while others mentioned that children often behaved strangely when they were there. A former student who attended the school in the 1940s reported in a 2010 interview, "We all hated room 307. There was something fundamentally wrong with that place. The walls seemed closer than they actually were, and there was always a smell of chalk and something else, something rotten hidden beneath the chalk smell." Attempts at destruction. Why not simply demolish the school and end the curse? This was a question asked repeatedly over the decades, and there were several attempts. 1975. Attempt. The city approved a budget to demolish Blackwood School. A demolition crew was hired and work began on a Monday morning. For 3 days, they worked without problems, tearing down exterior walls and removing debris. On the 4th day, the crew was supposed to start working on the 3rd floor. But when they arrived at the site in the morning, they discovered something impossible. All the walls they had demolished were back. It was as if the last 3 days of work had never happened. The foreman, a pragmatic and skeptical man named Frank Sullivan, refused to accept that something supernatural was happening. "Someone is rebuilding this at night," he insisted. "We'll work in 24-hour shifts." They tried, but every time they entered the school to work after nightfall, tools disappeared, Machines stopped working for no reason, and workers reported hearing voices whispering their names. 2 workers refused to return after reporting seeing ghostly children watching them from the windows. The project was abandoned. The city lost thousands of dollars, and Blackwood School remained standing. 1998. Attempt 23 years later, a new municipal administration decided to try again. This time, they hired a company specializing in demolishing potentially dangerous historic buildings. The plan was to do all the work during the day and have 24-hour security on site. The work started well. For a week, the crew made significant progress. But then, the incident happened. One of the excavator operators was working on the west wing when his machine suddenly accelerated out of control, burst through a wall, and entered the building. The operator managed to jump before the machine went through the third-floor door and plunged down the stairs. When the dust settled, they discovered that the excavator had stopped exactly inside room 307, and on the room's blackboard, someone, or something, had written a message. "This school will last forever. Classes never end." The project was immediately canceled. No demolition company in the region has agreed to work at the site since then. The truth behind the myth. With so many documented disappearances and failed attempts to destroy the site, it's difficult to separate fact from fiction when it comes to Blackwood School. Skeptics argue that many of the cases may have rational explanations. People running away, unreported accidents, or even conspiracy by the local community to keep the myth alive. Some suggest the legend attracts tourists and attention to the city. But believers point to evidence that's hard to ignore. 1. Audio and video recordings. Multiple recordings from different eras show similar phenomena: children's voices, shadowy figures, and impossible changes in the school's physical environment. 2. Multiple witnesses. Cases where several independent people reported the same phenomena at the same time. 3. Bodies never found. In over 70 years, none of the bodies of the disappeared people were found, neither inside the school nor in the surroundings. This is statistically unlikely if the explanations were natural. 4. Pattern of victims. The fact that almost all victims had a connection to education suggests some kind of intentional selection, not random accidents. The school today. Today, Blackwood School remains standing, a decaying monument to the horrors that occurred within its walls. The city installed security fences and warning signs around the perimeter. Security cameras were installed, although they frequently stop working without explanation. Regular police patrols check the site, but none of this stops the truly determined. Each year, some people try to enter the school, whether for challenge, morbid curiosity, or genuine paranormal investigation. Most are caught by security before entering. Some manage to enter during the day and leave without incident, but those who stay until nightfall. The last documented disappearance was in 2022. A journalism student named Sarah Martinez was writing her thesis on modern urban legends. She obtained special permission from authorities to visit the school during the day, accompanied by 2 security guards. Sarah was meticulous in her research, taking photographs, measuring rooms, and documenting everything. At 5:30 p.m., the guards were called to an emergency at another location. They asked Sarah to leave the school and wait for them outside. Sarah agreed, but decided to take just one more photograph of room 307 before leaving. When the guards returned 15 minutes later, Sarah had disappeared. Her camera was found on the hallway floor in front of room 307. The last photo showed the empty room, but when investigators zoomed in on the image on the computer, they could see faint reflections in the windows. Dozens of small figures sitting at desks that were no longer there. Sarah Martinez was never found. The final warning. The story of Blackwood School serves as a grim reminder that there are things in this world we cannot fully explain, and places where the past seems to refuse to stay dead. Whether the disappearances are caused by supernatural forces, hidden tunnels, or some combination of natural and psychological factors we don't yet understand, the result is the same. This is a place no one should approach after nightfall. Local residents have a saying about Blackwood School. Teacher Margaret is still giving lessons, and she always has room for more students. Would you dare to be the next to test this legend? Local authorities, serious paranormal investigators, and even die-hard skeptics agree on one point. Whatever the truth behind the mysteries of Blackwood School, the risk isn't worth it. There are mysteries that should perhaps remain unsolved, doors that should remain closed, and places where the living have nothing to gain. Blackwood School is there, waiting silently on the hilltop, its broken windows like empty eyes watching the city below. At night, some residents still report seeing faint lights moving through the corridors. Others swear they can hear, carried on the wind, the distant sound of children reciting lessons. And somewhere inside those decaying walls, in the absolute darkness of room 307, perhaps Teacher Margaret is still standing at the front of the class, patiently waiting for the next student who dares to enter. Class is in session, and no one has permission to leave until it's over. Author's note: this story is based on various urban legends of haunted schools from around the world, combined and adapted to create a cohesive narrative. While individual elements may have inspiration from real reports, Blackwood School is described as a fictional creation. However, places with dark histories really do exist, and they deserve our respect, both for the memory of real victims and for the caution we should exercise when exploring abandoned and potentially dangerous locations. If you're interested in urban exploration or paranormal investigation, always seek proper permission, go accompanied, inform others of your plans, bring appropriate safety equipment, and never, ever risk your life for a story or some social media views. Some mysteries aren't worth the price they may demand.